Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Real Sports Updates here, back again to continue our 2021 preseason preview. Today we'll be covering the Dallas Cowboys. Um, so in 2020, the Dallas Cowboys finished the season 6-10. Obviously, they didn't qualify for the playoffs. Um, the star quarterback, Dak Prescott, was injured in Week 5, so that kind of derailed the season plans for the Cowboys. Um, 2020 was the first year that Mike McCarthy was coach of the Cowboys um, after them firing Jason Garrett the previous season. So going forward in 2021, um, I think the Cowboys they're in somewhat of a precarious position. Obviously, that Dak injury was really bad. It was really gruesome, and he obviously has to be healthy for them to have any type of success this year. So I think that's their main focus is getting Dak healthy. He resigned in the offseason on a pretty hefty contract. So he is the franchise, and they have to make sure that he is healthy going forward. Um, as far as the rest of the team, Ezekiel Elliott. Um, I think a valid question would be: is he still an elite running back? Um, his his yards per game have declined the last 4 seasons. So I think that's a valid question. He obviously signed a pretty big contract himself back in was it 2019, I believe. Um, I think it was like a 5 or 6 year extension, but his yards per game have declined. And last season he looked lost without Dak. He had a fumbling issue, which was a little bit uncharacteristic of him. We haven't seen him fumble that much in the league, but he was pretty. He had a pretty lackluster season last year, so I think he's gonna come back and try to be a lot better. And I think he will be a lot better. I think having Dak there is it's just good naturally going to open up holes for him, and he should have a better season. His numbers should look a lot better with Dak back, and if Dak is healthy. So um, I think one of the main concerns with the Cowboys is their their ownership and the way that they run their team. They pay they pay too much money to a lot of guys who I don't want to say they don't deserve it, but they really set the market on all these positions, and they have done that for a really long time. And it's kind of a weird thing. They're really the only team in the NFL that does that. They overpay guys, um, but they're also great at drafting as well too, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense because if you're great at drafting guys, you shouldn't have to overpay. And there's obviously premium positions that you pay for. You pay for quarterback. You pay for offensive line. You pay for a pass rusher, and normally a shutdown corner or like a real like good safety. But there's a few premium positions that you do have to pay for. Everybody doesn't deserve a huge payday though. And the Cowboys are notorious for doing that. Jerry Jones is notorious for doing that. And I think that's affected the Cowboys in a lot of ways. Especially Zeke. If he doesn't have a huge season this year, I think he could be on the bubble to restructure and take a pay cut or just outright get cut. Because the Cowboys are gonna have to pay guys. CD Lamb is gonna be. He looks like he's gonna be a really good receiver for them, so he's gonna demand some money. They obviously drafted Michael Parsons this year, and he looks like he's gonna be a player too. So he'll be demanding some money in 2 or 3 years. So they're gonna have this problem, and it's gonna keep continuing to snowball if they don't nip it in the bud right now. Which they probably won't. They've overpaid guys for a really long time. And guys know that when they go to Dallas, they're gonna get paid. Especially if they ball out, they'll get paid. Um, so yeah, I think they have to stay away from that if they want any success. But we'll see how that goes. We'll see what the season looks like. I think that Amari Cooper contract is a really really awful contract. I think it's one of the worst contracts in football. Even though he had a good year last year, it didn't go towards winning. All those stats didn't go towards winning, and the previous year, whenever it was a big game, whenever they needed Amari Cooper to come through, he really wasn't there. So for him to get that $100 million contract is really, really, like, I don't know. It's a little puzzling, but he'll have a chance to redeem himself this year. Um, and we'll see. We'll see how they do as far as the salary cap and stuff like that. As far as coaching goes, I think Mike McCarthy is going to be on the hot seat. Um, the pressure is going to be on him this year. There's going to be a lot of pressure. The Cowboys have everything that they need. Um, minus really a defensive line, like a really, really dominant defensive line. Everything else they need. Offensive line is decent. They have weapons. Obviously, you have your quarterback and running back locked up. Defensively, they have probably the best linebacking core in football. And they fixed some of their issues on the back end. So all they're missing is some defensive line help. But the pressure is on them to win, especially in their division. The NFC East, also known as the NFC least, is it's not a hard division to win at all. You know, you can finish with the losing record and still make the playoffs, but I think the pressure's on them. The pressure's on Mike McCarthy. They have to make the playoffs this season, or else he'll be gone. Um, I just don't understand how the pressure's that high in that division is so bad, but Mike McCarthy is going to have to get this team to the playoffs if he wants to keep his job. Um, there's too many guys making too much money on this team. There's too much talent for them to not make the playoffs in the worst division in football. So, I think Jerry Jones really is gonna have his eye on that. And he's gonna he's gonna make a decision after the season. Depending on how they do. So, yeah. So I think Mike McCarthy needs to make the playoffs to keep his job. Because as it stands right now, the Cowboys are the third best team in the division. I believe the Giants are probably the best. Washington football team is not too far behind, and then it's the Cowboys. Well, like I said, we'll see. We'll see if Dak is healthy. We'll see if the Cowboys are healthy. Because that can change very quickly. It's a very fluid situation in the NFC East, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I don't. As far as the 2021 outlook on the Cowboys, I really don't see them making the playoffs. I think that battle between the Giants and the Washington football team is gonna be that'll be for a playoff spot, and obviously, whoever finishes second in the NFC East is not gonna be good enough. Their record's not gonna be good enough to get into the wild card. So there's like one playoff spot for grabs in that division. So I think it'll be between New York or Washington. I don't know. I just the Cowboys are lackluster. They're the biggest name in the NFL. They're worth the most money, but on the field, they lack they just lack some fight. They lack some urgency, and I think a lot of it has to do with these players being overpaid, and Jerry willing to capitulate to players demands, their financial demands. It just this is a very, very precarious situation that the Cowboys are in. They got guys locked up long term on deals. There's not going to be a whole lot of salary cap room going forward. But they continue to draft well, so they'll keep their heads above water. But as far as turning that team into a Super Bowl team, they're really gonna have to have a change in philosophy. You can't do the same thing you're doing now and expect this team to compete against the likes of a Green Bay, or a Tampa Bay, where there's a bunch of talented guys who are willing to take pay cuts to play with Tom Brady and compete for championships. I just don't. The Cowboys are not in that. They're not in that area. And they're kind of average. Mike McCarthy. He's not a bad coach. I think he's average. Um, you know, the play on the field. There's talented guys, but they don't always play up to the talent. It's kind of an average team. Um, but yeah, I just I don't know. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. But on the other hand, if there's an injury, if Daniel Jones gets injured, or if Washington has a lot of turbulence at the quarterback position, I can see the Cowboys making the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised. But I think if everybody's healthy, all teams are healthy, I don't think the Cowboys make the playoffs. Um, and it would be the third straight season that they didn't make the playoffs. So you know, I think some heads would definitely have to roll if that was the case. Jerry's getting older. I know he wants to win another Super Bowl before he steps down, and before basically the end of his life. He's an older gentleman, so I know he really really wants that last Super Bowl really badly, but they're not gonna get it the way that they are currently constructed. They're not good enough, and you know are they good enough to win the NFC East? Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Especially with injuries coming up. Oh yeah, they definitely are. But are they good enough to compete in the playoffs and you know win wild card games and divisional games and NFC championships? No, 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 no. They're definitely not. Um, they are they're a little bit too reliant on Dak Prescott right now. I just don't see them. I just don't see them, making a whole lot of noise, especially when it comes to playoff football. But we'll see. We'll see how they do. I'm happy to see Dak back. Hopefully he has a good bounce back season. That was a really really bad injury last season. I felt really bad for him, and then he had the whole tragedy losing his brother. So I really want him to play really well. Um, and just have a nice bounce back season. Regardless of what the team does. But yeah, I don't like I said I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but we'll see what happens. There's still quite a bit of time. Before all that will be determined. But yeah. So yeah, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. We have more content coming up. We're going to continue the 2021 NFL preseason preview. The next team we're going to be covering is the Denver Broncos. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for listening.